Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Hayden. I'm a producer here at Fierce. And today I'm joined by Fatima Sabar, CEO and co-founder of Bluenote.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Yes.
I'm Fatima, as you mentioned, CEO and founder of Bluenote, which is an AI platform for life sciences. We have the opportunity to work with some of the largest companies in the industry to help streamline their documentation and help them bring their life-saving therapies to patients sooner.
Excellent. I do have one question for you about that. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to Bluenote?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is bioengineering, biomedical research, and I had the opportunity to work at a phenomenal company previously called Color Health. I was an early employee there, and my co-founder of Bluenote was also an early employee there. He was the first engineer, so we've been working together now for about 12 years.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the things that we observed when we were at Bluenote is a couple of things. First is Katsuya, my co-founder, and his team built AI-enabled tools for the scientists and clinicians at Color, and we were able to see massive productivity gains for the variant scientists, the geneticists, genetic counselors, and these were internal tools that were for these professionals, and this accelerated them and increased the throughput in terms of the number of patients and clients we could serve. And that was a really key moment for us to realize that we could build these types of tools for companies across the industry and help everyone with these types of life-saving or time-saving innovations.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's smart. Yeah. That's great. Well, let's jump into our questions today, okay?
Great. Yeah.
So I would be interested to hear, can you set the stage for us by describing how you see the industry evolving and where your team is most focused on driving innovation?
Yeah, I'm sure as you walk around this conference today, everyone is talking about AI.
Yes,
AI.
Yes,
where can we deploy AI? Where is AI having a real impact? Where is it a few years out? And what we focus on is deploying AI that can have real world impact today for our clients. We work with several of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the industry, so think top 30 by market cap, that are trying to figure out a few key things. Number one is, how do they bring their life-saving therapies to patients sooner? And where we've gotten to as an industry in the pharma biotech industry is there is a lot of documentation and manual process that goes into discovering, developing, and delivering a new therapy to patients. And I spend all of my time effectively with individuals that lead medical writing, preclinical writing, and what they are passionate about is how do we reduce the busy work that goes into developing a new drug, right? And what we've done is we've taken these brilliant minds, these PhD scientists, very advanced scientists, and instead of getting to spend all of their time doing science and making novel discoveries, they are now writing documents, reviewing documents, sitting in endless strategy meetings trying to figure out how should we phrase this for the regulator, right? What they should be doing is there should be a tool, and this is where we come in, that is able to take in all of the relevant factual information about your study, your protocol, your SAP, your actual findings, your TFLs, and produce a first draft of that documentation. It gets to your desk and you are there reviewing it. It's really important to keep the human in the loop, but what we need to do is, how do we lift the burden of busy work, manual, tedious work, where you're copying and pasting information from one place to another, right? When you're working on a regulatory submission, there is a lot of the same information is in multiple different places. And how can we use a tool that can do that first draft? This is not a one-click CTD to the FDA. We're not there yet, right? And I think it's important to understand, where are we today? What's possible with AI, and where are we going? And how long will it take us to get there? Today, where we are is we can have an AI tool that can first draft for us, do this combining, transforming the relevant information from the protocol, the SAP, and put it into the relevant sections of the CSR, and then have the highly trained medical writer come in and review the key pieces of information, actually think about the scientific narrative, the safety, the efficacy. Where do I need to go in and do a deep dive on the AEs, the SAEs? And that's what our users tell us. I actually had a user tell me recently, finally I get time to think. I'm actually using my brain. I'm not hunting down the relevant one data point in the preclinical study report to put it into my tabulated summary, right? And so this is a brilliant neuroscientist who said, I feel like for the first time in years, I have the breathing room to think, and I
Right.
could actually think about how will what I'm presenting land with the regulator? Where are they going to see gaps, and how can I proactively address that? And that,
Right.
that's what we love. What we live and breathe at Bluenote is how do we give brilliant scientists back time
Yep.
to do the hard thinking, the hard science, and let a tool like Bluenote do the first draft of the manual, tedious work.
Yep. Yeah, the administrative
Administrative work. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
so
you know,
hard.
where we look at where we are today. We should do a study really of, you know, what percentage of drug development is administrative versus scientific, right?
We probably don't want to know.
Exactly. That would be scary. That would be scary. And then,
Yeah.
but, you know, but I think societally, it would have us take a moment and reflect on why are we having, you know, let's look at the system that we've created where we're having the most brilliant minds that are the most equipped to develop new life-saving therapies. Why are we having them do administrative work? Why have we burdened them
Right.
with this administrative
Right.
work?
Yeah, I mean, I know we've done the studies with doctors. So
Yeah, exactly. That's a great.
physicians.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That is a great parallel, a great analogy of, you know, one of the areas that's taking off very rapidly from an adoption perspective is AI scribes
Yep.
for clinicians, and similarly. You know, they can go back to why they went into medicine in the first
Right.
place, which is the patient interaction, trying to get to the root of your diagnosis and help you as a patient. And I think we should do the same thing for scientists.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have the company, so I'll just
Yeah.
look for your studies. So, back to the questions here a little bit. You know, your founding team combines experience from tech giants like Google, Twitter, with deep life science expertise. So I love this. And how has your unique blend of backgrounds shaped Bluenote's approach, and why is it so critical for the industry right now?
Yeah, what we do in terms of our team background, what we've assembled is, as you mentioned, folks from Google, Twitter, Color Health, Meta, Amazon, people that have built massive scalable systems, large production code, and very complex systems with subject matter experts who have spent 20 plus years at places like Takeda, Pfizer, CSL, Amgen, et cetera.
Yeah.
And we're combining this deep subject matter expertise with these deep technical capabilities. And we feel that these are the essential ingredients to develop a phenomenal product that is truly designed for the subject matter experts, you know, for medical writers, for preclinical writers, for people in R&D, for chief medical officers. And it needs to be designed with those folks along with people that are deep technologists, that have deep technical backgrounds, that have built, you know, for example, a subset of our team, they've built some of the largest search products they come from Twitter, Pinterest, et cetera, where they're deep in search in terms of understanding how do you build scalable search technology. And a lot of the problem that we're solving is actually identify the relevant information in your source material to then correctly transform it into the outputs that the regulatory agencies require.
Yeah.
And you know, frankly, it's surprising how much of a pain point it is to find that relevant information. It is a large search problem. A lot of people think about it as it's just a authoring problem, but to get the authoring correct from an accuracy standpoint, you need to get the upstream search part correct.
Right.
So how do you accurately ingest the source data that is typically seen in the life sciences industry, accurately parse that, and make that available for AI to use in downstream use cases? And if you don't do that top part, that upstream part right, then nothing else matters downstream. You're actually creating more work for your end users because now they're correcting all of the output. And so getting that upstream part is very correct, is very important. The way that we do that is we've hired the best technologists that have built these scalable search systems in other domains, pair them with subject matter experts to understand how do we deep dive in understanding the stability data for CMC. This is a really big problem. This type of data is collected over many, many years of drug development, over the multiple phases of clinical trials. And how do it's not just a search and find of stability data, but you need to have good graph technology to understand the relationship between different terms and be able to accurately reflect that. And so that's how we invest in the technology side.
Context, right?
Correct,
Context
exactly.
matters, and context and AI are not always friends.
Exactly.
So.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you don't have the right context, and if you have the right context, if you're not accurately ingesting and parsing it, then you're not going to have an accurate downstream output. And so, the most important thing that we prioritize is accuracy. How do you ensure that the outputs are highly accurate? Part of that is also about having the right guardrails. We all know that AI hallucinates. It's biased to be very helpful to humans.
Right. It
but
just wants to help.
It wants to help.
Yeah.
We've all seen the headlines of in the legal industry where AI will make up case law in the absence of actually having in the absence of that case actually existing. We obviously can't have that in the life sciences industry. And so what we do is we've built a hybrid generative AI and deterministic logic system to ensure that there is no hallucination. So in places where we expect a factual piece of information, if we're not able to surface that in the relevant source information, we will put a placeholder for the subject matter expert, and we will highlight it, and we will say there was insufficient information to make a call here. So we're not doing a best guess based on not having the complete information, but rather we're just putting a hard placeholder saying, please fill in this information because we don't want to make a best guess. So these are the guardrails we put in place.
That's great. I've never heard that. That's great. That's great. So, kind of looking beyond documentation, what's your long-term vision for AI in the life sciences? And how will AI agents and automated workflows fundamentally change how scientific and medical teams operate over the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. Ultimately, the core problem is that it still takes 10 to 12 years and $1 to $2 billion on average to bring a new life-saving drug to patients. And what I hope we can accomplish over the next several years is go workflow by workflow and understand what are the real bottlenecks. What are bottlenecks in terms of two things? Number one is the time drivers. Where can we cut time? There's time that goes from when we collect the data to when we can produce the relevant documentation and get it into the hands of the health authority. That's an obvious place where AI can be applied to help. As the underlying models and the technology improve and they can take more and more complex action with less directive information, with less precise instructions, I think AI will be able to take on more and more complex tasks. So my hope is that we can look at every single bottleneck in this process, and I think you have to go through workflow by workflow. I don't think there's a panacea. I think that you have to do the hard work of get into the weeds, talk to the subject matter experts, have them as part of the company, saying, okay, when in the 20 years I've spent developing drugs at Amgen and Pfizer and Takeda and all these places, here have been the time drivers and the cost drivers, right? And you go workflow by workflow, and you pair with the technologists and understand what's possible. So I'll give you another example. So we've spent a lot of time today talking about documentation. That's our bread and butter. That's where we focus. We believe this is the area that it's a no-brainer. This is where every company is going to do their documentation differently a year from now, 2 years from now. We'll look back and say, we can't believe we were doing that manually. We can't believe it used to take us 6 months, 9 months, right?
Teams of
people that were, again, the most advanced people that we were having do this administrative work versus the thinking work. You're going to need those teams of people, but they should be thinking about the strategy. They should be thinking about what is the regulator going to care about? What are the gaps in the information I'm presenting, and how do I proactively address that? That's where you're going to want the team's minds focused on. Now, so we've talked a lot about documentation. The other areas that I'm also really excited about, let's look at other bottlenecks in drug development timelines. Patient recruitment for clinical trials and matching of patients that match the criteria for clinical trials, inclusion-exclusion criteria. Can you actually have, one of the capabilities that is advancing rapidly with AI is the ability to have unstructured conversations. This is really novel, right? I think we're all still very much internalizing what does this mean, that I can talk to an AI and have an actual conversation with an AI, and it's dynamic. It's similar to conversing with a person in terms of I can say something, Fatima can say something, Chris can respond, and then it's not pre-programmed in terms of a deterministic logic. And so can you have an AI clinical trial recruiter that is on 24/7, and it's recruiting in all languages in all regions for all relevant clinical trials, and it has your opt-in access to your health record data, and therefore it knows whether or not you meet the inclusion criteria for clinical trials. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
And then what about the patient management during the clinical trial? There's drop-off. Can you have something that actually reminds you or talks with you, takes your, does a pulse check on you, saying, how do you feel today? There's 2 weeks before your next visit as part of this clinical trial. How are you feeling? I'm going to collect data from you on an ongoing basis, and maybe that real-world data is actually very relevant.
Right. Of course.
So I think we're just scratching the surface with documentation, right?
Yeah.
So my vision is we want to be, at Bluenote, we want to be the operating system for how new drugs get developed and brought to patients. And we're committed to going workflow by workflow, understanding every single bottleneck, working deeply with subject matter experts and trying to figure out how can we reduce the time and cost it takes, because ultimately patients will benefit.
Right, absolutely. That's quite the task.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is correct. It's not an overnight journey.
No.
But you just, I don't think there are any shortcuts here. I don't think there are any shortcuts. I think you have to go, again, like workflow by workflow and do the hard work of understanding, why does this take long? What are the real bottlenecks? And then be really creative about applying the technology, or are there systemic changes that we need to make? And we have to dream also. People will say there's a lot of, I think it's, very smart people can often be default skeptical.
Yep.
And I think now is the time to dream and say, yes, we need things like guardrails, and yes, we need to be aware of limitations, but let's also dream for a second. We're in a place where we can think about drug development very differently from relative the system that we have today, and all of the processes and procedures, they were designed in a pre-AI era, right? And how can we really rethink what is possible in a now AI era? Right, and let's embrace that. And I know change is scary, and if you've been in this industry for a long time, you feel like, well, I've been part of making things happen the way that they happen right now. But what I often find actually is some of the people that are the most enthusiastic about change are the people that have been in the industry for 20, 30 plus years and have said, my God, this is not the way forward. This is not. And now finally, the next generation of scientists and researchers can develop drugs in a very different way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because they're probably watching all these other industries around them modernize and lose that administrative burden, or at least improve it, I should say. So that's
exactly right. And there is, it's to your point, it's also natural for our industry to be more conservative, to take more time and a thoughtful approach, and I think that is right in terms of being thoughtful and in terms of understanding the limitations. At the same time, I think we should embrace and we should dream what's possible. Let's assume for a moment we can overcome the limitations. We can put in guardrails. We can prevent hallucination. We can put in, part of it is also putting in processes. We can take the first draft of an AI output and have subject matter experts review it. We can inform patients that when we're doing clinical trial recruitment with AI, that they're talking to an AI, and therefore there may be, it's not a trained person on the other end, and so you need to put in all of these guardrails, these awareness mechanisms. But I think that shouldn't hold us back, right? That shouldn't hold us back.
Yeah, I agree. So we've talked about this a little bit. So the life science industry is built on, as you mentioned, accuracy and trust. And with concerns about AI hallucinations, how does Bluenote's platform ensure the reliability and traceability of its outputs for critical applications?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, regulatory filings.
Exactly. These are, it's interesting because we are focused on an area that's very high stakes.
Yes,
right?
100%.
These are documents that ultimately will end up in the hands of the FDA, EMA, PMDA, global regulatory health authorities. And so the bar for accuracy and quality is very, very, very high. Right? And the way that we make that possible is by having a deterministic logic system as well as a generative AI system. So it's a hybrid system. It's not pure generative AI. It's deterministic logic and generative AI combined, where we are using generative AI in the places where we need to produce a narrative, for example.
Yep.
There's also a lot of places where we're finding the relevant data point from the source material and bringing that into the regulatory submission,
Right.
and that may be done in a deterministic way. So these are, it's a very complex system, but ultimately what you need to have is you need to have guardrails in place and make sure the system is designed in such a way to ensure that there is no hallucination, that there are built-in QC mechanisms in the output that is drafted, right? So there is multiple steps in every sentence, in every data point that is presented that in the Bluenote platform. That sentence has gone through multiple steps of review of generative AI, followed by deterministic logic QC, ensure that that information is present in the source material, and then it will be presented to the subject matter expert. So that type of rigor in building the system is really important. This is not it's not a one prompt system, right? There's multiple steps. It's a workflow. And there's multiple steps that are happening under the hood to ensure high quality, high accuracy. And I believe this is essential in order to get subject matter experts to actually trust the outputs and to add value. You don't want to create more work for the subject matter experts if they're going back and having to correct everything. And so this is, I would say, as companies think about finding the right AI solution for them, the most important thing for them to think about is the accuracy and the quality. And so this gets to also a lot of scientists, researchers will ask me, how do you measure accuracy? How do you measure quality? And we have a robust system in place where what we've done is we have guardrails in place, and then when we do an implementation with a large company, we'll first configure based on their templates, their gold standard example, right? Think of this as the head of medical writing has a set of gold standards that she may present to a junior, let's say a new junior writer on the team, to teach them. This is what you want to emulate for new submissions. This is we're moving from Shakespearean writing to lean writing, and this is our gold standard. So write like this for this new submission. So we will take those past examples, the gold standard. We will configure that. It's obviously on a per company basis. There's no data sharing happening between companies, and Amgen does not want to use the same template as Pfizer, as Novo, et cetera, right? So every company wants to use their own template, their own past gold standard. This is hard-won institutional knowledge. We encode that in a template that's available to them and them only, and then we produce the first draft for them. Then what we do is we'll actually take the Bluenote generated draft and a past manually generated draft for the same source material, for the same submission, and we'll do a red line, a literal red line. And what we'll find, what we've done this multiple times, what we found is that all of the factual data points match, meaning Bluenote did not make up any of the factual information. The differences in the past manually generated draft and the Bluenote generated draft will be around stylistic components. The past manually generated draft was more verbose in these areas, and Bluenote took a more lean authoring approach, so it was more concise. And so we'll actually do that side-by-side comparison, and then we go through an iteration process where they might say, in this section I actually want to be more verbose, I want to be more redundant, and in these sections I want to be more lean, so we'll do a next round of configuration of their template. That rollout mechanism of doing that red line side-by-side comparison is critical to showcase the accuracy and quality and build confidence in the AI-generated outputs.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating to me. As an English major, it's fascinating.
Oh, what do you think of this as an English major? I'm so curious. I bet English majors make actually some of the best critics of AI-generated content.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. My kids even use it. They use ChatGPT and that kind of thing. So I think it's fun. But I think it's great, and use the tools that you have. I mean, we have this fantastic, incredible tool at our fingertips. So use those tools and learn how to use it.
Exactly.
And the fact that you say that you're able to say, your AI is able to say, I don't know.
Correct. That's essential. It's essential.
Yeah, I really love that.
It's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece.
Yeah.
So, last question. What's the one thing, like everybody's leaving, at the end of this biotech conference, what's the one piece of advice or insight that you'd like them to walk away with?
Oh, that's a great question. I wouldn't necessarily call it advice, but what is a piece of insight that I'd want them to walk away with? Something I spend time talking to our partners about is you want to find an AI partner that is going to grow with you.
Yeah.
The underlying capabilities of AI are advancing incredibly rapidly.
Yeah.
And if you end up partnering with a company that is not advancing at that same or even more accelerated pace, you will get left behind.
Yep.
Because you are ultimately, you're partnering with an AI expert company and what are you partnering with them on? Really, you're partnering with them on give us an edge with AI.
Yep.
Help us understand what's happening with the technology that's moving very rapidly and where can we apply it to our processes. And it's important to pair up with a partner that is on the cutting edge of the technology and they are constantly aware of and pushing the limits of it.
Right.
Otherwise you'll get left behind, right? And I think that's what I spend a lot of time with, the executives that I get to spend time with is they care about what's possible today and where is it going because we want that edge. That is important to us. We're going to be, every pharma company, every life sciences company is saying they want to be the first AI-driven life sciences company. And that, that's coming from a very real place because they see the value of it.
Right.
And what they're looking for is a partner who will innovate at a very rapid clip. And so looking at the technical capability of the team that you're partnering with, I think is essential.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's fascinating. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really great.
Yeah.
It's been interesting.
I really enjoyed the conversation.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Great
course. Thank you.
conference. Yeah, thank you.